The Ghost Army, the fake army that fooled the Nazi. In the final years of World War II, the Allies had millions of soldiers fighting across Europe. But one of America's most successful military units was an army that barely existed. They had tanks that weighed less than a person, cannons made of rubber, trucks that disappeared when you touched them, and soldiers whose most important weapons were paintbrushes, speakers, and imagination. Their mission was impossible: convince Nazi Germany that a massive Allied army was somewhere it was. And somehow, they succeeded. This is the incredible true story of the Ghost Army, the secret American unit that defeated the Nazis with deception. By 1944, Nazi Germany was losing ground. The Allies had landed in Normandy and were pushing across France. But every mile forward became harder. German forces were still dangerous. Their commanders were experienced. Their intelligence networks were powerful. The Allies realized something. Sometimes the best way to win a battle was to make the enemy fight the wrong one. A fake attack could save thousands of lives. A fake army could move real armies. And that idea created one of the strangest military units in history: the Army of Armies. In early 1944, the United States formed a top-secret unit called the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. But this was not a normal fighting force. Many of its members were not traditional soldiers. They were painters, sculptors, architects, engineers, radio experts, even actors. Men who had studied at art schools were suddenly sent to war. Instead of learning how to destroy things, they learned how to create convincing illusions. Their battlefield was the mind of the enemy, building an army out of nothing. The Ghost Army's first challenge was simple: how do you make a fake army look real? The answer: make everything fake. They created inflatable tanks that looked like real Sherman tanks from the air. Fake artillery, fake supply trucks, fake camps, fake vehicle tracks. From thousands of feet above the ground, German reconnaissance planes saw what looked like a powerful American force preparing to attack. But if a German soldier walked closer, he would discover the truth. The tanks were made of rubber. The army was an illusion. The sound of 30,000 soldiers. But seeing wasn't enough. The Ghost Army needed the Germans to hear them. A special sound team recorded the noises of real military operations: tank engines, construction crews, heavy vehicles moving, thousands of footsteps. Then they blasted those recordings through massive speakers powerful enough to be heard miles away. To German soldiers listening nearby, an entire army had arrived overnight. Except there was almost nobody there. The Ghost Army wasn't just pretending to be an army. They were creating a world that didn't exist. The radio trick. The third part of the deception was communication. German intelligence listened carefully to Allied radio traffic. They believed they could discover where armies were moving by tracking messages between commanders. The Ghost Army used that against them. Their radio operators copied the habits of real military units. They sent fake messages, fake orders, fake conversations to German spies monitoring the signals. Everything sounded completely authentic. The Allies weren't just hiding their plans. They were feeding the enemy a carefully designed story. The biggest bluff of the war. In March 1945, the Ghost Army performed its most important mission. The Allies were preparing to cross the Rhine River into Germany. The Germans knew this crossing would be a turning point. So the Allies needed to convince them that the attack was happening somewhere else. The Ghost Army moved in. They created fake military camps. They positioned inflatable vehicles. They filled the airwaves with fake communications. They created the sounds of thousands of soldiers preparing for battle. From the German perspective, a huge American force was waiting. But it wasn't real. The Ghost Army had created an entire battlefield out of nothing. The soldiers who played a role. The deception went even further. Some Ghost Army soldiers would drive through towns wearing different unit patches. One day, they might pretend to be part of an armored division. The next day, they appeared to belong to another. Their job was to make enemy spies believe that a huge number of troops were moving through the area. They were actors performing the most dangerous role of their lives. Because if the Germans discovered the trick, they could become a target. The secret that disappeared. When World War II ended, the Ghost Army went home. But they couldn't tell anyone what they had done. Their entire mission remained classified for decades. The world celebrated famous battles and famous generals. But the Ghost Army stayed hidden. Thousands of people never knew that some of the most creative soldiers of WWII had protected them. They had fought a different kind of war. A war of imagination. The legacy, the Ghost Army, proved something extraordinary. Wars are not only won with strength. They are won with strategy, with creativity, with the ability to make an enemy believe something that isn't true. The Nazis were defeated by armies of tanks and soldiers, but also by an army of artists carrying inflatable weapons. An army that was never supposed to exist. An army that became one of the greatest military deceptions in history. The Ghost Army.